Well, I'd like to welcome Anna Mattix as our first interviewee in the BPO Musician Interview Series thing that I'll be doing here over the next couple weeks. Hello, Anna.
Hi.
You just played second oboe on the Mozart Jupiter Symphony, correct?
I did. That's not actually my normal job, but our normal second oboist has the flu this weekend. So I had to step in and play one of my favorite pieces, actually.
Really? What instrument do you usually play here
in BPO? I actually normally play English horn, which is the tenor version of the oboe. It's approximately 3/4 as long as the oboe, and it's easily identified by the bulbous bell.
So the oboe and the English horn and the bassoon as well are members of the double reed family. Could you describe what that means?
Sure. Basically, what that means is we take two pieces of what we call cane, which are tied together onto a tube. Bassoonists don't use a tube, but oboists do. And you clip them open, and the two pieces vibrate together like this in the mouth when you blow, and that's what makes the distinctive sound.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. Yep. Could you demonstrate how your instrument makes sound?
Sure. So, actually, you can get a good shot of this. So there's all my currently favorite oboe and English horn reeds. I tie in all kinds of different colors so I can keep track of
And you make these yourself?
I do make them myself, yeah.
And how many hours a week would you say you spend making reeds?
Well, I usually spend at least 30 minutes a day, but there are times that I will spend an entire day doing prep work for it, so hours and hours and hours. So on those kinds of days, I can sit at the desk for 5 or 6 hours at a time.
So from beginning to end, how long would you say it takes to make one reed?
Oboe reeds take me anywhere from a day to a week, and English horn reeds take me approximately 3 weeks to 6 weeks.
And how often does one just not come out right and you have to throw it away?
All the time.
So you spend all that time making a reed just for it to be a dud?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the end.
And basically what we do is the reed by itself makes what's called a crow. And a good crow has a fairly stable sound. I know that sounds strange to you guys, but I can make the reed a lot based just on how that crow sounds. And then it sounds like this on the instrument.
What is the role of your instrument in the orchestra?
Well, the English horn is really a true solo instrument. It has some of the most famous solo passages in the orchestral literature. But what's interesting is the audience doesn't always recognize the instruments that plays them. They'll recognize the tune, but they might not recognize the instrument. For example, the opening to the Largo from Dvorak New World Symphony. Lots of people know the tune. Not everyone knows that that's actually the English horn.
What's difficult to do on your instrument?
Well, the English horn, in comparison to the oboe, which I played for much longer, is actually, because it's much bigger, it's much heavier. So I have issues there. I actually normally wear a neck strap to play English horn just because I need to take some of the weight off of my wrist and thumb area because I'm not quite strong enough. But one of the things that I actually do a lot to make sure that I'm actually strong enough physically to hold the instrument for hours at a time, like we're sometimes required to do, is I actually do a lot of weightlifting at the gym and work on my shoulder and back muscles in order to just make sure I physically have the strength to play the instrument.
Wow.
And then the other big issue for English horn is that there's a larger spread between the keys. And so there was a slight adjustment there in terms of relearning how far apart my fingers had to spread apart.
Wow, so it would almost be like if a piano player suddenly had to play on a piano with much wider keys.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Very cool. So a lot of people here in the BPO and orchestras all around the world have pre-concert rituals that they go through. Maybe they'll show up a little extra early, or they'll have exactly 8 ounces of water. I don't know, something crazy. Is there any kind of pre-concert ritual that you go through?
My ritual is I have to have at least 3 reeds that I feel like I can play the piece on, and so I usually have 3 reeds in my case that I have soaked up and ready to go. And while I'm out on the stage, about 15 minutes before the performance, I'm sitting there with all the reeds in front of me, playing them and changing between all of them, trying to decide which one I'm going to play at that time.
So you're basically making a priority list or a bracket of which reeds are your winners and
exactly. And if anybody who sits up in the balcony can actually see me really well, one of the good tells to know how nervous I am about something is how many times I fiddle with my reed.
So you could go through several different reeds in one performance.
Yeah, actually that's fairly common for me. There are certain things that are easier on different reeds, so I often will use more than one reed even in one piece of music.
Oh wow. So a couple questions to wrap this up. What do you love the most about playing in the BPO?
Oh my gosh. The people, the atmosphere, the hall, the audience, the conductor, gosh, you name it. It was the highlight of my life when I won the job here, and it's just been a true blessing. Fantastic.
I bet that there's a lot of us here who would agree with you wholeheartedly.
I think so, yeah.
What advice would you give a young musician who wants to play in an orchestra?
Practice.
Practice.
Practice consistently, practice basics.
Fundamentals.
Okay. Practice your scales.
Okay. So it'd be like training for the Olympics, but you're
right.
playing your scales.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And one other question, I'm sure there's a lot of non-musicians out there who this would be their first question. What is it like to have an orchestral musician's lifestyle? In other words, you're not working a typical 9 to 5, right?
Right. So there can be issues with balance because every single day brings different timelines. So I never have any set, consistent schedule. So I just basically make sure I have to get up early enough in the morning that I have a very strong morning routine of breakfast and exercise and practice before I come to rehearsal or whatever I have that day. That's what works for me.
And then there are some weeks we'll be swamped with many different folders going across our stands.
So there's tons and tons of music to learn. I think that's something that people don't realize either, is that we're never just working on one piece at a time. It's usually like 8 to 10 pieces at a time. So.
Excellent. And when you're preparing those things, how much would you say you practice a day? Or how much, when you were in school, how much did you practice compared to now?
So when I was in school, I absolutely practiced 3 to 4 hours a day. And now I usually practice 1 to sometimes 2. I do a little bit less just as I get older. It gets physically a little bit more demanding. But I also, I'm more efficient in my practice now, so I don't have to do quite as much. But when I'm preparing for a big concert or a recital, something of that nature, I ramp it back up again.